A very good morning to you and welcome to Morning Express. My name is Trix Ingado. Today on the show, as usual, we take a look at what's making headlines both locally and internationally. But of course, we shall train our eyes on what's making headlines in terms of the latest, hottest topic in the political arena. Stay tuned for that and much more. See?
Good morning, Trix, and good morning to our viewers. Of course, it's Tuesday and we'll take a look at the political developments in the country. There have been quite a number. Just recently, or rather yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta went live on various vernacular radio stations, making some utterances that will definitely form basis of our discussions later on, so you can't afford to miss that. Trix?
Indeed, and we shall be starting off by taking a look at those stories. That story is one that is cutting across all papers. When you look at them this morning, you'll see President Uhuru Kenyatta's attempt to, placate the restive Mount Kenya backyard by turning to a local vernacular station, and all that has been broken down in different ways based on the publication. But of course, let's take a look at what's making headlines internationally to get you updated on what you need to know that is happening in the region. And we start off in Uganda. The Daily Monitor right there is telling us about Museveni joining Africa's longest serving leader. Just to give you context to this one, remember Bobby Wine was 4 years old when Museveni took power. He's now at least, I think, 33 or 35 years old. And there's a list of all those leaders who have sat in power, stuck with it all the way into their 80s. So take a look at that and see what they have to say with that. They're also giving us a tally of the coronavirus infections in the region, and Kenya, as usual, is not doing well. We are well over 90,000, just toying with the 100,000 mark. We're actually at 99,162. Then we have, I will go to court. This is Bobby Wine saying why Museveni lost Luwiro's votes, and observers gave mixed reactions to that hotly contested election. Let's move to Rwanda and see what's making headlines. We're told, ignore COVID-19 rules at your own risk. Actually, the capital, Kigali, has come under lockdown owing to a spike in the numbers of coronavirus infections. According to their tally, they are at 11,032, and given the size of that country, this number is pretty high. Then we have Museveni shakes off Bobby Wine but weekends grief on house, and at least 83 killed in fighting in Darfur. That is to the north. So take a look at the Rwanda today and see what's making headlines in East Africa. Speaking of East Africa, the East African is right here telling us about what's happening in Djibouti. Eyes on Djibouti in Somalia and Kenya peace deal. And then we are told about internet access restored in Uganda, of course, after the election has wound up. And then we have Co-op Bank gets 75 million in lending to MSMEs. And then let's take a look at the Citizen. This is from Tanzania. We're told Air Tanzania and Air India signed cooperation agreement, half of Forum 4 2020 scored Division 4 in national exams. That has to do with the education sector in the country. And then further down, we're told Magufuli eyes on world food security in post-COVID-19 era. Take a look at that and find out what's happening in Tanzania. And of course, let's take a look at what's making headlines internationally. The CNN right here gives us focus on what's happening in Asia in their world segment. We're told if Kim Jong-un destroyed North Korea's economy to keep COVID-19 out, will sanctions stop him from pursuing nuclear weapons? This is something that you need to learn more about. And then we're told about Russian opposition leader to be held in custody for 30 days. China debuts train prototype that can hit speeds of 620 kilometers per hour. We have more news from Europe, the Middle East and Africa. Bobby Wine is still making headlines right there. He is one of the key figures that have been making headlines worldwide. In this particular article, we're told after 5 days of internet blackout, Ugandans are back online as Bobby Wine remains under house arrest. Let's take a look at the BBC and see what they are focusing on. We're told about world on brink of catastrophic moral failure. This is according to the WHO, and it has to do with that vaccine that, of course, is not being dished out equally across the world. Poorer countries are on the receiving end of a lack of provision when it comes to this, because, of course, they cannot afford it as well as if you compare them to other more developed countries. Then Biden says travel ban to stay despite Trump order. Putin critics, of course, Alexei Navalny to be kept in custody. We saw that also on the CNN website as well. And there's more stories, particularly covering geopolitics and matters in the U.S. presidential handover. That is quite a big, story that will be covered increasingly as we head towards the inauguration date. So take a look at those papers and get yourself updated on what's making headlines internationally. But locally, we have and the Standard right before me here, and that speech that was given at a vernacular radio station by Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, is something that is making headlines across board. On the front page of the Daily Nation, you're told Uhuru fires at Ruto. Facing the mountain, this is what the tagline is here on the Daily Nation. Keen to address concerns that he has been laid back and hands off in the succession politics of the vote-rich Mount Kenya, leaving his deputy to roam free and build sizable support. President Kenyatta asked the region to allow him to focus on his development agenda. And on the daily, the Standard, we're told tough call for Uhuru. With a restive Mount Kenya backyard, President turns to vernacular radio stations to trash the hustler narrative, makes impassioned plea for support for the BBI, and to declare that he is yet to pick a successor. Joining me to analyze these papers, and we will be focusing and going deeper into this later on with more guests, but I'd like your view on this, Alex Chabeda. Alex Chabeda is a regular on the show. He is a governance expert and a political analyst. Alex, what do you make of this one and the reactions always? Alex Chabeda, Agri Chabeda, sorry.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Yes, I think the president has always gone back to his base now and again when he needed to reach out to them. So this is not a surprise. It's just that the context in which he has gone this time is such that it's hitting the national headlines, and more so because he used the platform to have a go at the former governor of Nairobi, Mike Sonko. I think the politics that's playing out right now, as you can see, is 2022 politics starting early. And clearly he wants to make it clear which side of the divide he was in respect to Mike Sonko. I was a bit surprised that he actually made those comments because inevitably they have elicited a reaction from Mike Sonko, whom we know shoots from the hip.
Yeah. And
I think it's an unseemly situation whereby the president is finding himself having a spat with the ex-governor. But having said that, I think the president's intention really is to reach out directly to the bedrock of his base.
Yes.
And tell them exactly what he feels and maybe perhaps influence them in supporting his agenda going forward, especially BBI.
Okay, and speaking of succession politics, there's a story here tucked away in the middle in the county news. We're told about a declaration by Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria, who has said, I am running for president next year. This is a declaration that I think is pretty bold at this time, particularly given where he is from. Do you think he has the kind of clout that is needed to take this seat?
I think Mwangi wa Iria is now a well-known name within the country and especially within the Mount Kenya circles. I think he's trying to push ahead and be ahead of his rivals within the region.
Yeah.
Personally, I think he's gotten out of the blocks prematurely because the central Kenya politics have not yet settled. And they are going to settle once BBI is behind us, whether it's passed or not. I think then the formations will begin to come, and him coming out again on his own creates a danger that he may find himself isolated because there may be people who want to support him, but at this point, I think because it's a bit too early, they will hold back.
Yeah, a bit too early, because typically they would wait for President Uhuru Kenyatta to make a declaration, you think?
He may not make a declaration as such. He may wait until he sees the formations, and then because there would be nothing worse than the president to make a declaration of somebody and then find that that person is not quite who the region would like to support going forward.
Yeah, okay. Now, he has said, I have the freedom to go for any seat, and using my Usawa kwa Wote party, I'll be on the ballot as a presidential candidate. Take a look at the dailies to find out more about his bid to be this country's president. And far from that, we have county politics taking center stage. Nairobi County is in focus. On the front page of the Standard this morning, Kananu swearing in city governor halted. Now, court orders that the new Nairobi deputy governor should not be sworn in as the city boss until a petition challenging her vetting and approval is heard and determined. More details are on page 8 of the Standard. But this, tongues were wagging just from the point where in under 4 hours she was sworn in as deputy governor, a move that some have termed unconstitutional. And there was a lot of speculation if this is an attempt by some shadowy powers to finagle her into that position. And clearly, after the relinquishing of the acting powers by the speaker, now we're seeing an attempt to have her take that seat. So what do you make of this as it unfolds?
I think there is no doubt that there is a lot of intrigue and skullduggery taking place in terms of this position by various parties. The speed with which efforts are being made to do things itself raises a lot of questions.
Right.
But the speed mostly must be to try and bypass the courts, because everybody knew, and it was inevitable that as soon as these changes took place, that there were people who are going to challenge it as whether it was the right thing, because the jury is out there as to whether there should be another election for governor, or whether Ms. Kananu had been duly is a duly nominated deputy governor who then should possibly take over as the governor of Nairobi. And what we are seeing now is people behind the scenes, different political actors, are trying their best to outdo each other. In terms of the national scale, I think it doesn't reflect well on the country as we are watched, and we play out these games almost as if they are our personal properties.
Given the importance of Nairobi County, both locally and internationally, this is not the kind of politics that even investors want to be, to be associated with a possible investment hub or destination. But still on that, let's dig deeper into the stakes. Why is this such a huge deal? Particularly, let's talk about those who are for and those that are against her. And let's start with those who are against her possible appointment as governor. What are the stakes, and why is this a thing that is seemingly hitting too close to home for some?
I think first and foremost, the president has staked his personal prestige on the whole scene by having, and by his direct admission, engineered the downfall of Mike Sonko. Therefore, I'm sure he would be keen that the process that appoints governor, whether it's Anne Kananu or another, results in somebody who will then reflect his desires and possibly the desires of a lot of Kenyans. And at the heart of all this is the city of Nairobi and the way it's governed and whether services are being delivered. We know that we have the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, which is, again, baby of the president.
Right.
And they have done quite a few things which a lot of people have liked. But we also know that eventually they began running out of funding because the former governor blocked approval of those funds.
Which is no longer a problem if Kananu is at the helm.
We would like to think so, but we will only know when people get into office and begin acting. Because after all, Mike Sonko is a Jubilee stalwart, and they came to power. The president came to power and the governor also came to power on the Jubilee ticket. But what then happened afterwards seemed to have made a big fallout.
Right.
I think with less than a year, or maybe just over a year to go to our general, 1.5 years to the general election, it is also very important for certain powers that Nairobi appears to be actually functioning, because it will become a political discussion going down the road.
And on the flip side?
On the flip side, I think is it's all the political mess that is flowing, and the services are required by the people. We have seen two sides claiming. Mike Sonko has come and given us a long list of successes that he's had with Nairobi.
Right.
We have the Nairobi Metropolitan Services now, which has been working behind the scenes. General Mbadi is a different kettle of fish. He's not for the publicity. We basically don't hardly see him, and we mostly see what comes out. And this unfortunately is going to play out again in the politics that we are seeing at the BBI of two different groups. And it is my hope that this matter can be just resolved very quickly, so that the people of Nairobi stop suffering from deciding who is in charge, what are they in charge of, who are they allied to, and we just get things done and legally. Yes.
Easier said than done, I think. Now, Honorable James Gakuya joins us. He's the Member of Parliament for Embakasi North, to bring us more context to some of these stories. Honorable Gakuya, we've talked about what's on the front page. Kananu's swearing in as city governor has been halted. This is owing to a court order. And page 6 of the Daily Nation, you're told ODM demands city slot as court holds Kananu's swearing in. What do you make of this development, and did you see this coming?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to join the debate. It's quite a hot debate, but since it is working in our midst, we have no choice but to deliberate it as it is, whether hot or cold. But things has been going up and down, and has been going to the speed of helter-skelter, that we have seen operations of Nairobi gubernatorialship replacement working like lightning. Because I was not expecting that at this particular time we will be having a deputy by the name Kananu in our city. But fortunately enough, she is that now she's a sweared-in deputy governor. What happened is that, in fact, I've seen the court has stopped her from swearing in to becoming to assume the full mandate of the gubernatorial, and I hope that this may take longer. And what things works is like when somebody is already sweared in, he becomes an acting capacity to that particular position. And therefore, Kananu, since Mutola, the speaker, has already resigned yesterday morning, this has given her a clear way to take over. And when the deputy governor is in charge, the position of governor is not vacant. And therefore, at this point, I can tell Nairobians, as we speak, legally,
yes,
Nairobi City is no longer vacant.
Okay.
And we are not in what we call the interim 60 days that were given by the Constitution as a loophole to prepare for an election. And therefore, I'm overseeing a situation where there is none like anything to do with the election coming soon for Nairobi. After the judiciary will pronounce itself to that decision, I'm very sure that they may not punish Nairobi to an election as if they have allowed this process to be at the point it is as now.
Let's talk about that. Why would a by-election be seen as punishment? Is it true that we are broke, we cannot afford another election at this time? What is that is such a threat that people would rather have this route as opposed to anyone who wants to run for governor, go to campaign, and of course this be decided at the polls?
What I can say, gubernatorial position is not anything special from any other elected position. And if in case we could have a scenario where we don't have a president, we don't have a deputy president in that particular scenario, this country should go for an election. This is what the law says. But in case you may lose a president and have a deputy president, that country cannot be subjected to an election because automatically the deputy takes over to the rest of the term. But in the Nairobi scenario, it was totally different. When the governor was impeached, the position of governor was vacuum because there was no deputy in position. And therefore, it gives Nairobi a very tricky position that unless the court interprets this very clearly, we assume that when the speaker took over, then it means that we are moving to an election because the seat was in vacuum.
Okay. Now that we're still on the matter of Nairobi and that governor position, let me give you a quote by the president. He was speaking at a vernacular station yesterday, and this has had a lot of people talking both on social media and mainstream media. And the president said he instigated the removal of Mr. Sonko because he had become too warlike with everyone. However, the Nairobi governor defended his short reign at the City Hall, saying despite inheriting a run-down city, he cracked down on cartels that had held Nairobi hostage for decades, sealing all the looting avenues by digitizing revenue collection, and that Nairobians started enjoying services once again without having to offer a bribe or some sort of pay. Do you agree with his defense of his time at the helm of the Nairobi County?
As residents of Nairobi, I would say yes. At some point, things have been working well, and after the transfer of factions, was surely before the transfer of faction, Nairobi was doomed. The services were totally doomed, and surely Nairobi required such a major restructure to make it move, considering that Nairobi City is the country's capital. And therefore, the president's decision to persuade Sonko to allow the transfer of some factions was quite noble.
Right.
Where the ball started being seen as swinging is when then the same governor started moving to court, saying that actually he was forced to the process and so on and so on. But despite all this, I am sure the idea of the president was quite important because he's the head of state, and actually he was feeling the mercy of the city. And the city, the route it was taking is totally nosediving in terms of services. Today, I would say, yes, the NMS has done a lot, and especially in terms of fixing the roads. Roads were so dilapidated then, but today, at least we can see roads are stable. Where I can say there is a tug of war today is probably during this particular process of budget. Right. And Sonko was a big threat in this because he actually deliberately failed to approve the budget to punish the NMS not to work. But, so that is the reason why, if you can walk around the streets of Nairobi, especially Shauri Moyo markets, you can see a lot of heaps of garbages there and corrected. Yeah. But this is because Sonko made sure that this NMS is not going to receive its budget, so that it can cripple the services. Right. And that is why making sure that Sonko is out of this embargo and out of these handles, the president, I am sure he has used his energy to make sure that he has fixed that. Okay. And I can say, going forward, I am sure Nairobi will be safer. Yeah.
Mr. Chabera, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I think what we have seen happening is a classic case of poor corporate governance taking place. The fact that the positions of various actors are more paramount than the actual services that are being delivered to the residents is a big problem. On Sonko's, if I go maybe support him in the sense that he has listed yesterday his successors. And I don't think anybody would question that those things did happen while he was in office. I think his problem came more with his way of governing the county.
Right.
His personalized
so the president is right in his assertion that he was warlike with everyone?
Well, that's the president's opinion.
Yeah.
But definitely his style of governance got in the face of a lot of people, and he appeared to concentrate a lot of power on himself at the expense of everybody else. And then, of course, there is a raft of graft allegations against him, and he seemed not to be politically savvy enough to swim through the waters and stay at least in office until his term expired. So I think all said and done, I think a lot of what has happened to Sonko, he brought upon himself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we're going to take a short break. On the other side, Jesse Rogers shall be helping us break down that speech by the president, where he talked about a lot of issues, including the BBI, the benefits of that being development as opposed to the need to politic. He talked about a very big issue in the country, that is corruption. And he mentioned that we're hemorrhaging 2 billion to graft every year. And of course, that got a lot of people very angry. So we're going to have that talk and much more, and our guests are going to give us context to these assertions that were made by the president.